All right, great. Thank you so much and welcome back to Encourage Theory. Hello, everybody. If you're joining us for the first time or coming back again, want to welcome you. My hope is that this podcast experience will encourage, enlighten, and inspire you to create the life that you want. I'm your host, Tiffany Blackman, aka T Blackman Speaks, and today we're going to talk about permission to live on purpose with special guest, Dr. Erika Brown, aka Dr. Erika by Design, okay?
That's right.
Sure, to listen to the entire episode and get related details about resources and how to connect. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh my gosh, today we're going to talk about purpose and permission to live on purpose. But what does that even mean? So, here to chat it up and explore it all, help me welcome Dr. Erika by Design. Dr. Erika Brown is a coach and a consultant, a solopreneur, and podcast extraordinaire. She is self proclaimed corporate America dropout, introvert with extroverted tendencies. She's a wife, a daughter, a sister, an auntie. Oh my gosh, a friend, an all around spreader of love and light. In her coaching and consulting business, she has one extreme focus: help established and both budding female solopreneurs get it organized and defined, making moves to execute their vision. And I could probably say a lot more because as women of color, we don't brag on ourselves, but I'm going to say it. Erika, you're the bomb.com girl. And I hope you know what an encouragement you are to other women. Y'all help me welcome Dr. Erika by Design. Hi, Erika.
Hi, Tiffany. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Really? Welcome, Chica, and thanks so much for joining us today.
No problem. I'm excited for the discussion.
Yay! Erika, girl first, what don't you do, okay?
Girl, tell me about it.
Well, okay, so, but I do want to say this, like, it does sound like you're a woman of color that's finally learned and practiced the art of saying no. So, but I know that you probably haven't always painted with those brushstrokes. Right. I've been there. I'm still there. It's a practice and and a purpose, like full, like woo. Let me make sure that I'm doing stuff and saying no to what I shouldn't be doing. Right. So tell me, Miss Corporate America Dropout.
Yes.
What helped you learn to say no, and when did you give yourself permission to live on purpose?
Well, what helped me learn to say no was realizing that at the end of the day, at the end of my life, when I'm sitting on the porch with hubby and we rocking in our chairs, it's just us two. Like what everybody else wanted us to do, what everybody else expected us to do, it's not going to matter. Like, do I want to be sitting on that porch rocking, saying, I wish I would have done what I had in my heart or my mind? Or am I going to be sitting there saying, I'm so glad I tried because I pushed the opinions of everybody else out of my head? Because truth be told, opinions of others, they matter, but not to me anymore. Like that's where I had to get, like I love it. You had to get there. Like their opinions just don't matter because they're not living your life. And it's all about living your life, your truth, living your passions out. Right. So
tell me more about this golden handcuffs of corporate America that you told me about when we first met.
Well, okay. So I grew up in the age of go to school, get a job, typically a doctor or a lawyer, right? Like those were the things back in the day.
Okay.
And I did that, right? Like I went to school, got the degrees, and got the corporate job that if you were to ask people in my circle, like everybody would have wanted, right? The job where you're working from home, you're this glamorous work travel, corporate car, all that kind of stuff. But that equation of go to school, get a job, you'll be happy, that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And so when you're in that space and you're caught up in the picture of success and the money that comes with that, you're just kind of stuck. And for me, it came to a point where being in that environment where I was a shell of myself, essentially. Like I didn't even recognize who I was. All the things that I knew I was good at, all the things that I knew I loved, all the things that were passionate in me, they were just kind of just stifled into this box, right?
Mm.
And it got to a point where my health was failing. I was gaining weight, and that was just, girl, okay. Gaining
Man.
weight, the travel, and then I ended up getting blood clots from work.
No.
So blood clots in my 30s, I'm sitting on the couch and I'm like, just all the thoughts of how can this be happening? Why am I sitting here? Life is too short for this, right? You would think that would then push me to be like, Erika, it's time to change. No, still stayed. Right, still stayed, right? Because those outside voices are still in your head. Still stayed. Probably a year and a half later, found myself on the balcony of a hotel during a work trip, ready to just call it quits. Like this was a wrap.
Wow.
And my phone rang, and it was my sister.
Mm-hmm.
And she put my niece on the phone. I think at that time, my niece was maybe, let's say 18, 20 or something like that.
Okay.
And the thought of me having my niece try to talk to me about why I need to be here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It should be the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I knew like this corporate life, what everybody thought I should do, what everybody thought I should do with my degree, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. Talk about a journey. So when we first talked about this episode, we talked about how long that lasted. And I mean, of course, on top of the balcony, like that's the epic point of like, oh my gosh, no return or get it done. How many years did all of this last? The health issues and just straining with if this was the life for you, like.
So I was in corporate for 16 years in big pharma. I would probably say, it's going to sound sad, 15 of those years, I wasn't happy.
15?
Yeah. And probably 5 years I was miserable.
Wow.
But
and
again,
the 5 was the
last
latter part? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
15 years.
Yeah. You just kind of go like you are just trained, like you have this degree. This is what you do. This is what life is. So it may not bring you joy. It may not, excite you. It's paying your bills though.
Yeah.
It's keeping, you in nice things, but you're just not happy.
So 15 years that you were in a place, like I like to think of this as anyways, the price we pay for staying where we don't belong. And so I know that these places, in biblical terms, they're like the brooks, right? The brooks that we're called for, they're like places of provision. And as a Christian, like many things hang on my faith and my belief. Like each stone is a stepping stone, each job is a stepping stone, each career step is a stepping stone. However, some of those stones, like we take well past the step and we push it into a stead, which really is like a homestead. I'm living on this this rock, and it was meant to be for like a moment in time, or sometimes, who knows, not at all, maybe, I don't know. So I'm really thinking like these are the moments for us that are really meant to be short spans of time that we end up prolonging like the season that we're in, and it's a detriment to us, right? Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how, towards the end of your time, your 15 years, how you really started to see this as like a season that lasted way too long, like just way too long.
I think for me, I'll give you two things that kind of made me realize that, yeah, you stayed too long and it's time to change. One happened on a work trip. And, kind of speaking of faith and knowing that you are meant to be more and do more, it's funny, all these things happen on a work trip. But I was,
it's most of your time. Like.
Exactly. I was on a work trip and I was looking out the window and like this vision came to me. And it was a vision of me being back at this hotel in DC. And I was there because I was invited to come be a key speaker for some women's event.
Mm.
And it was just randomly, like you're just standing there looking out the window. And that has always stayed with me, like, Erika, you're being called to be more than just this role in pharma. And so hold on to that vision, because it was sent to you for some reason. Like, you didn't just bring this to your mind, it was sent to you. So I always held that with me, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I think that kind of helped me, not necessarily realize that I had stayed too long, but helped me break out, right, of that need to stay, was really embracing who I was and what I was missing in my life.
Mm.
And I say that because, again, I'm a pharmacist by training, so it's very regimented, right? And as I began to re-explore who I was or who I am, I realized that this creative side of me was not there.
Mm.
And so kind of giving myself time to explore things that I liked, things that I enjoyed, I was able to find that. And one thing, and it's going to sound crazy, I always say that cosplay changed my life.
Oh,
And
I got little anime nerds, so I know
right,
all cosplay and
right,
how fun and
exactly.
like exhilarating actually it can feel for folks. So
Right. But for me, it was that whole outside opinion thing, right? Because for a while, I kept that as a secret. Like,
mm.
I can't tell my colleagues that I dress up as Cruella DeVille. Like, what would they think? You know, and as time went by and I started to do more and more cosplay, it's like my confidence grew.
Yeah.
My ability to say, you know what, I don't care what you think,
Yeah.
grew. The
Mm-hmm.
ability to really begin to tap into all those things that were missing, that were being, again, boxed in because I wasn't living in my authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
It grew.
That's amazing.
And yeah,
So did that happen before you transitioned out of your job, the cosplay and that
it
like
did.
separate living my best life dream on
It
the
did.
side kind of
It did. I started cosplaying 6 years ago, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And it just kind of, it opened my eyes to see that, again, I was listening to just voices that did not matter. And it
Mm-hmm.
opened my eyes to see that there's a whole world out there that you have yet to explore,
Yeah.
because you are staying so stuck in this one thing that you think you have to do
Yeah.
because of the journey that you've taken thus far.
Mm. I feel like sometimes those voices can come from external folks that are close to us, even societal standards, that say like you should be this thing, you have to do X, achieve X within your lifespan by your 30s, like whatever. But I think also sometimes it comes from us internally where we're like holding ourselves accountable to reaching some goal or status. I know for me personally, I experienced the same type of thing over the last few years, 2 years to be exact, of a 6-year job. And I realized that I wasn't being fulfilled in ways that I really, really had hoped that my 9 to 5 job would fulfill me. Part of that is the creativity, like you said.
Right.
I am, if you follow Myers-Briggs at all, like I'm an ENFP, so I'm all like, woo, extroverted, let me be creative, let me like set the vision, help people run towards it kind of thing. And I was really in a job that doesn't allow you to do that. Like
Right.
it's pretty straight and forward, like do the thing, do it like X, and
Yeah.
like that's it, smile, be
Right.
like all those things. But that creativity within my 9 to 5, which we spend most of our time, like in a week, Monday through Friday, I spend more time at work than I do even at home with my children,
Yeah.
so I was missing that terribly. What I did to try to figure that out is much like you. It's like, what can I do that would bring me that creative fulfillment? And so I started a consultant business on the side about 2.5 years ago. And I used it to travel the US while getting paid to speak and train about one of my passions, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I know, like, I can remember the exact moment when the straw broke the camel's back. And I don't know if you, I mean, you told us all about that moment where
Yeah.
you had like, coming to Jesus moment. Like, this cannot stay the same. It either has to go left or it
Mhm.
needs to go right. But something needs to change. And I feel like the moment that I gave myself permission to live on purpose, I was literally sitting on my couch crying weekend after weekend, missing my children after my second divorce. I had been married second time, same man, and it wasn't working. What I thought was like gonna work, it could not work. We were so different and traveling in such different paths. And I felt very fulfilled in many ways after the initial, like, woo, breakdown, all hell, go break loose, like all that. But I felt very fulfilled, like, okay, I know who I am. I have permission to let this relationship go. So I felt fulfilled in a lot of different ways, but in one particular way, which is actually my love language of time, I felt so unfulfilled because my children, and I have 4 children ranging 7 to 17.
Oh, wow.
And I love my babies. I've always been with my babies. Even when we were divorced before and separated, like he would come and nest. They call it nesting, when he'd come to my house and have time with them. So I've always had them. But this arrangement was an arrangement that said, like, no, they get to go with him now. And I tried to build myself up for that mentally, but nothing really truly prepared me for the amount of time that they're away from me each week, like 2, 3, 4 days, depending. And I just felt very unfulfilled. So I would binge watch my favorite shows, and movies, and why I chose This Is Us during that time, Lord knows.
Oh, goodness.
I shed some extra tears because of that. But by the 3rd week, though, I realized like something needed to change, because that time that I hold so precious and dear, like I was wasting it. I was literally wasting my time. So like, what did I want to do with my life? Like this time alone, it could be a gift in many ways. Like, what did I want to do with it? And so I know that you shared that pivotal moment for you. I'm wondering a little bit about what encouraged you to recalculate and give yourself permission to live on purpose. Thank God for your niece and your family that helped to aid you in that moment, but it took much more than that moment, right? Like what really encouraged you and helped you to recalculate and give yourself permission?
I think I got to a point where I just knew there was more. Well, let me back up. There's one person, like my husband, definitely, like he's the person that I would come back home from trips, whatever, and like every time he'd say, "Did you quit today?" Like, and when it became daily, like, "Did you quit today?" You kind of start to think like maybe he's onto something here. That was number one. The other thing I think that really got me was sometimes you have to take a risk and bet on yourself, right? You've given 16 years to this space. And when you were down on medical leave, they still functioned.
Yeah.
It didn't matter that you were gone. They still functioned. And you're not getting anything from them, and they obviously don't need you. So why are you dedicating so much time to this when there's so many other things that you want to do with your life? You may not have it all figured out, right? And that's, I think, one thing that women, we think about, like, well, if I leave, what am I going to do? And that was me for a while. Like, I can't leave because I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. And I wish I would have taken the leap sooner, right? Because I don't think I would have ever figured out what I was going to do, honestly. Until you start to do it, right? And you start to see like what works, what doesn't work, what you like, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I think, just realizing that, again, you only have one life. You start to get up in age, I think, and you start to see like, well, this many years have passed.
Erika, what you mean up in age, girl? I'm 37. Years. You can't be too much older than me.
You say you what?
37.
Okay, no.
I shouldn't have brought this up. Age is a touchy subject sometimes.
I'm past you, girl. I'm past you.
There's no way that a woman with a face like yours could be that much older than I am. Like, come on, y'all. I know.
42. I'm 42.
Okay, see, that's super young. Super young.
But you start to think.
I want to touch on that, though, because, like, man, I've seen so many women stuck mentally in like that age thing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm too old to start again. I'm too old to,
Yeah.
try to be figuring this out. Like, it's immature of me that I'm in this spot where I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. Are you kidding me? Like, I think statistically, you're going to change careers, not even just jobs, but like careers up to 7 times in your life.
Mm-hmm.
But no one tells us that,
Right. But a lot of people don't do that, right? A lot of people just stay.
They do.
They stay for the benefits. I want to be tenured. I want to get, my 401k and be vested. But I think the best thing I ever heard was, and I'm going to mess this story up so badly. I'm so bad at telling stories. But the gist of it is, let's say you were 35 and was like, I'm too old to go back and get a degree. And then 5 years later, you still grew 5 years. You still, aged, and you still don't have that degree that you wanted. So why just go for it? You're never too old to make a change. You're never too old to start something new. I mean, if we think about some of the great people in the world, they didn't get started until they were later on in their age, in their life. So why? When we start talking about age, I get excited because I look at the millennials and like the younger generation, and they are just kind of fearless, you know what I mean, in doing things. And I think we can learn from that age group to just try it.
Yeah.
If you tried at 35 and you fail, guess what? You still have another year, some time to do it over, to try something new, to just keep going. But I think sometimes we just get so stuck in the life that we have built and thinking that's the life that we have to have.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, see, I am actually technically a millennial. Like, I'm on the older side of the millennials, but I relate to a lot of what, like, the data says about a millennial, but then some things like the trendier stuff, I'm like, I don't know about all that. But I feel myself in that pool, and I definitely relate when it comes to age and change and professional development, and like, do I stay with a company for 30 years? Probably not, because most companies aren't built for the individual nowadays, and focusing on what really is the strength of the individual, putting them in that spot to perform, and then building a team around that. Like, it's not built like that nowadays. So we hop. Like, we are not afraid of hopping jobs. Like, what? I've been there 3 years. Time to go. I've been there 5-7 years. Time to go.
See, I think the people that I know in my circle, we've all been taught, like, you have to stay at the job for at least 2 years. You just can't leave. Like, that's the mentality that, a lot of us have grown up with. And I think sometimes you have to know when to cut your losses. Yeah. And when to move on, so.
Agreed. Definitely. So see, okay. I'm thinking about like these life-changing moments that happen that says like, you know what? Forget this. It's been too long. 6 years too long. 2 years too long. 15 years too long. Like, these are small steps of freedom. They really, really are steps towards freedom and being and doing what you are truly purposed to do in life. And I'm a firm believer. We write our own stories. Yeah. We have the permission to write our own story. Like, no one's writing our stories but us. And I feel like when we decide to live intentionally and on purpose, that is where the boom happens, right? So I know personally, I recognize fairly quickly that we both have a passion of helping women. Probably not a huge, like, oh my gosh, this is like out of this world. Like, no, I'm a woman. I want to help women. But in particular, we both want to help new businesses and established businesses, women of color owned businesses, like giving life to their vision and to their passion and their dream of earning their own income on their own watch, right, and on their own terms, right? Like, so for me personally, this is something that I've been, passionate about doing in different ways, but recently became very, very passionate about doing it in a very particular way. So I have back in September, after all the COVID stuff happened, and it was like, whoo, take a 2-week breather. Okay, your breather's done, get back to work. And it felt like twice. Some people I'm hearing it's like 3 times the amount of workload. And then it's at home and you're trying to balance like my family, my children, like whatever your family structure is, like you're trying to balance all of that stuff in conjunction with work. Like, and it's not regular work. It's like, this is regular work, but figure out a different way how to do it, because you got to do it from home and keep track of everything. And then when we get back on site, you know, all this stuff, and it got super mucky, like super, super mucky for me. And I'm like, I don't want to live like this. Like, so if I'm going to live like this, is this job worth doing that? Like, does this align with my passion and my purpose? Does it fit? And I realized I'm that woman. I'm that woman that I want to help, but I'm not in the spot where I want to help her. Like I am an entrepreneur. I've been doing this for 2.5 years, but it's much bigger than that. But I didn't even allow myself to dream that big because I was just so laser focused. Like you said, this is what I need to do to earn income. You know, this is the most money I've made. It's security. Right. Security for me. You know, they're not trying to get rid of me. Like, I'm doing what I need to do. But at the same time, I'm on the outside trying to figure out how to fill in the gaps of like me loving doing what I am doing like most of my day, you know? So I'm wondering a little bit about how you landed on helping women entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and all that.
Well, again, you know, it's the journey, right? When I left corporate, so I left April in the middle of the pandemic.
Okay.
Right. And I had this idea of, I wanted to help women like me who are making career transitions into entrepreneurship, because I found it so fascinating that when I left, you know, you put in your 2-week notice and colleagues start calling you, asking you where you're going, all that kind of stuff. I had those conversations, but a lot of conversations were like, I can't believe you're doing this. I want to do something too, but I don't have the courage or the strength or, you know, the whatever to do it. And I'm on the phone like, I thought you were like the happiest person in the world with your job, but you never know like how people are feeling and how many other women are out there that want to do this type of career transition, but are scared or just, you know, whatever. So that was my initial plan of entrepreneurship and why I wanted to sort of work in that vein of women coming into this space. Now, again, things change.
Absolutely, all the time.
Right. So I'm doing that and I'm kind of learning the business and working my business and things like that. And one thing that I found was even in starting my business, I wasn't living all of me. Like I wasn't bringing all of me to my business. And I say that because one of the things that for me just innately comes to me is the way my mind thinks about processes, the way my mind thinks about organization and planning and just execution. And that was nowhere in my business. And apparently people could see that, you know, they saw how much stuff, to your point, as you started, you know, listing off the stuff that I've done, they saw how much stuff I had gotten done in such a short amount of time and wanted, you know, help with that or wanted assistance in trying to get their projects done. And I found this fascination just in female entrepreneurs wearing all the hats and not being able to ask for help or not knowing where to go for help, you know, and I found that fascinating. That may sound crazy.
No,
but I found
it
fascinating and wanted to be sort of that stopgap for them to help them take. So many women have these big visions and big ideas, and I want to be able to see all those visions and ideas come to fruition. So if I can be the conduit to help them take that big idea and make it into actionable steps, they can actually execute. So we can get more women out there on stages, on platforms, writing books, on podcasts, then that's what I'm here to do.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah, my vision is definitely more pointed. Like Battle Creek, Michigan is my heart. Like it is my home. It is my brook. I don't feel that I have ever felt called away from this place. So I see an immediate need to help women of color train and understand, like, what does it mean to run a small business. Like, a lot of women of color are doing their thing, but like you said, they're missing some supports. They're missing some know-how, some planning, some operational, and a lot of times it's just like simple things like, I need access to capital, I need some shelf space, can I get some shelf space, because I can't afford a whole building, I can't buy it, I can't rent it like myself. So my big idea is actually to incubate women of color businesses locally and regionally in Battle Creek and Kalamazoo, and then become a wholesale hub where I'm grabbing products from Grand Rapids and Detroit and Chicago. I'm bringing them into Battle Creek. People are like, oh, wait a second, let me pick up some of them goodies those women of color owned businesses got over there. That's my heart. I had no idea that it was going to go there. I mean, I'm supporting women of color. I helped co-found a women of color affinity group in Junior League, which is one of the largest, longest standing organizations for women in the US. I mean, I'm doing little things, and I have been, to support women of color, even with my small business coaching over the last 2 years. Like, there's been that connect, but actually slowing down long enough, giving myself freedom to dream long enough, it's like, nah, there's something bigger in there. There's something bigger.
And you have to do that, right? You know, because sometimes we get so busy working in the business that you don't give yourself permission or time to dream and to think about what it could be, or think about the direction that you're headed, because you're just so in it that you just don't have that time, you know?
It's so true. Oh my gosh. So I actually just recently read an article that's saying, like, oh, you think that these small little one-offs and you changing your job and like hearing other women like maybe wanting to change their job, like, we think like, oh, there's a little movement happening. It's not a little movement. The article I just read said, like, from last year, there are 2.2 million vacancies in the job market, like, filled, that used to be filled by women, compared to last year, you know, like, so this is a huge boom. I think that the article said, like, we haven't seen this since like the mid 80s or something like that. Like, there's a mass exodus of women from the standard corporate America workforce. And it doesn't matter if they are married, booed up, single, like, women are figuring out a way to stay sane and supportive of their families during a pandemic. And it's in large, massive quantities. Like, I think August and September alone was like almost 900,000 women left the workforce. So it makes me like kind of like, oh, I wonder how we feel about the woman's role in society. Like, it really hasn't changed too much, has it now? Like, like, we're still the nurturer. Like, who's gonna take care of the children? School's out. Like, we still gotta step up and take care of the children. Like, all these like different changes that have really, really played a toll on us, to the point where we have to decide, like, what are we going to do? And if we are going to do anything, what is worth my time? Like, what is worth my effort? So again, there are women that are making these decisions real time right now. What are your thoughts on helping these women realize their, not just potential, because I think we are so much more than potential, man, like, helping them realize their purpose? Like, what would you say to a woman right now that's like in the same spot you were in deciding whether you're going to stay at your job or not? Maybe she's not at that extreme. Some women, they want to stay in their jobs, but the weight of it right now is so heavy. Like, what would you say to them as far as taking those small steps towards freedom and giving themselves permission to live on purpose, even if she's in the place where she believes she should be, but she just like is overwhelmed?
So I think one thing is just let go of the expectations, right? We have these expectations in our head, whether they, like, to your point, are internal expectations or expectations that we have from society. Just let them go, and just don't think about what should be or how something should work, and just really embrace who you are and just try things, right? That's number one. Number two, I think is, and we're talking about women that are still in the workplace and maybe overwhelmed in where they are, finding some time for yourself. I traveled a lot for work, and I was trying to get myself together to become an entrepreneur at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to find moments of stillness in the airports, in my hotel rooms, just to kind of bring some peace back to my life. Right, exactly. So I think that's one thing. And actually, what I'm going to share is something. I say women need to be bold, right? And bold for me, it's the acronym. One thing is the B, right? We need to be in our hearts, not in our heads. Because sometimes we get so stuck in, again, what our head are saying, what our head is saying, the negative things that we hear, the self-talk that we tell ourselves. We aren't good enough to leave this job and start a business. I have no business starting a business, all those things that you have in your head. But if you really come from your heart and know that you have a passion for something, know that you have a purpose for something, know that your skills, your talents, your experience, your journey, you have that because it's meant to encourage someone else.
Yeah.
And if you really think about that and start to let go of what's in your head, you're already on the road to success, right? So the O we already talked about, which is other people's opinions matter, but not to you. Remember that one. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. The L is you have to learn your non-negotiables, right? Because I think a lot of times it goes back to that saying no. We say yes to things that we don't even want to do, that don't even match who we are, what we value, what we're trying to accomplish. Yep. So knowing what you are not going to negotiate on. And for me, one of the things was time with my husband and how we engage. At that moment, when my husband came down the stairs randomly and said something to me that was probably benign, and I wanted to snap, I knew it's time to go. It's time to change.
Yeah.
When your health starts to fail, when you can't do things that are really important to you, that bring you life, that bring you joy, that bring you comfort, it's time to make a change.
Yeah.
Right? And then the D in bold is a lot of times people, they stay where they are. They don't want to change because of fear. Right? But we have to do it in spite of. In spite of the fear, in spite of what could be said, in spite of what the best friend may say, what the dad may say, what the neighbor, what the dog may say. Just do it in spite of. Because you won't know what you're capable of, how far you can go, what an impact you can have on the world until you just do it. Man. So that would be my advice.
Be bold.
Yes.
Just be bold. See, yes. I knew there was a reason why we connected. Women, I'm not kidding. I've met and encountered so many women in the last year. Like, they need to hear this. They need to hear. And it's not always a job change. Like, it's not that for every single woman, but really taking the time to understand where am I right now, what's working, what isn't working, and being bold in those decisions. Like, it is dire, people. It is like people's health is failing because they're not reconsidering this stuff. There's a lot right now. So I'm so glad that we met. Oh my gosh. This has been such an amazing time talking with you about your personal story, about your encouragement to women, how to be bold and brave and literally live their lives on purpose, give themselves permission to live their lives on purpose. And I love that you're helping women to live their best life as solopreneurs and entrepreneurs on purpose, by design, right?
Yes, by design, not by default.
Oh,
that's what I'm talking about.
Love it. Okay, Erika, so how can our listeners reach out and connect with you? Your services, your content, let's make it super easy from them.
So you can find me pretty much everywhere, Dr. Erika by Design, on Facebook, on Instagram. The website is drerikabydesign.com. Yeah, that's where you can find me. Connect.
Awesome. And then is there anything right now that you're offering that you just kind of want to do a shout out for entrepreneurs and solopreneurs that are wanting to work with someone like you?
Yeah, so right now, well, I'm always open for coaching and consulting.
Okay.
And you can do that through the website. But right now, I just created a new infographic that I think is brilliant because I created it. But it's
Absolutely. Absolutely.
it's called The 12 Mistakes to Avoid as a Rookie Entrepreneur.
Hmm.
And I wanted to do this because, again, being a fairly new entrepreneur, some of my clients fall into that same sphere, as well as just anybody that's an entrepreneur, I think can find value in it because I found there are these 12 things that we do as entrepreneurs that can either hold us back, keep us stuck, keep us from reaching the right client, keep us from showing up to attract the right client, right? So it's affecting us as a business owner and the bottom line of the business, which is important.
Oh, yeah.
So it's an infographic and it has those 12 mistakes and it talks about how it can be impacting you. But to take it a step further, I have a 4-day challenge. It's not a Facebook challenge. You don't have to sign up for that. It's they get on my nerves, so I get it. But it's literally a email series where I come to you via video and we walk through those 12 steps. And we talk about how you can change those mistakes so you're not making them in your business. So
I
that's
love
what I have
that.
now.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like some meat. Okay, like
Yes.
I love it. I
Yes.
love it.
And you can
All
get
right
it
now, so if you're listening, be sure to reach out, follow, or subscribe. Continue to get the encouragement from Dr. Erika by Design at drerikabydesign.com or on IG at Dr. Erika by Design. You can find her wherever she is, Facebook, she is around, okay? And thank you so much again for joining us on Encourage Theory today, Erika. You have been such a blessing.
Thank you for
Such a
having me.
blessing.
Thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Tiffany.
All right, now if you enjoyed this episode, please comment and let us know. Rate it, share it, subscribe. If you were encouraged by this episode and others, please, please, please share it with your friends and family, okay? Sometimes encouragement can be that simple. Pass it along. Encourage others and be encouraged. Love y'all. Until next time. All right, yay!
The end.
I was like trying to get the end